Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. We're looking about the Tower of Babel uh, in the Bible. We have made a big deal out of the tower in the past, and the tower is part of it. But really, the issue is that they're wanting to build this great city where everybody's going to live. And they're going to come make themselves great because they're going to build this great city. God has asked them to fill the earth, to scatter, to do that, to be fruitful and multiply. And instead, they're coming all together. They're wanting everybody to live in one place, and they're putting all these kingdoms together. That's not what God had in mind, and it would have been disastrous for them had God allowed that to happen. But in verse 4 of Genesis chapter 11, it says, "Then they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the whole face of the earth.'" So they said to themselves, "Come, let us build this great city. Let's build a tower up into the heavens. And so we can have a great name. We want to be great. We want to make our name great. Otherwise, we're going to be scattered all over the earth," which is actually what God wanted them to do. But they want to make themselves great. They want to make a great name, and they think they can do that by building these great cities. Of course, we mentioned yesterday that they were using bricks instead of stone, tar instead of mortar. They were using inferior products and all. But we'll be talking more about this later. But what's interesting is that God's not going to let them do that. And we'll see later in this story, and I'll talk about this tomorrow. He's not going to let them all gather together. He's not going to let them do all these things. But they were figuring out ways how to get a lot of people in one place. The reason we know that is because Abraham originally comes from this area. He comes from Mesopotamia. And he comes from a place called Ur. And I find it interesting that they want to make themselves great, which you can't do. Only God can do that. But God's going to call someone from that area, and he is going to make him great. And he's going to make his name great. So what they were wanting is going to happen, but it's going to happen because God's going to call someone, and he's going to call them out of there. But where Abraham lived in Ur, they actually have dug that up. I think it's in Yemen or somewhere like that on the border over there. And they've actually found high-rise buildings when they started digging it up. And back thousands of years ago, they knew they were making buildings high and where they could put a lot of people in. So they were doing that. They had already figured out how to do that, and we're making that. But it says we're going to build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. This is where I think a lot of the confusion has come from my Sunday school teacher that taught me that, from sermons I've heard on that. I was taught that, they were building this tower and it was going to reach the heavens, and they were going to come in and storm heaven, and God got worried and like that. God was never worried. Heaven was never in doubt. In fact, this tower reaching to the heavens, they have found that statement made about other buildings. They found other over in Babylon, different things. They've found writings literally that says tower of buildings. That was a euphemism for how they would say a really tall building. And so I think we've made way too much out of them trying to build, going up to heaven and doing that. It obviously was a very tall structure, probably an impressive structure, but that's what they did. Now, what was the tower? What was this tower? There's a couple different ideas about it. Some have said it was a watchtower. Most places had watchtowers where they could see the enemy coming, and watchtowers were very plentiful in like vineyards. the guy would have a big vineyard, but he'd put a big watchtower, tall watchtower, so they could have somebody there all the time watching to make sure people were not coming and stealing grapes when they were getting ripe. Cities had watchtowers, so they could see enemies coming. They would have people on the watchtowers looking for enemy armies, so that they could come within the walls if they were. I'm not really I don't think that's what that was, but who knows? It could have been. There's another thing that they have actually found over there. I remember in college seeing pictures of it in my Old Testament book, but they found what they call ziggurats. And I actually have a picture of one. I'm going to put it up for you if I can. Let's see if I can make this work. But this is a ziggurat. And if you'll notice, they have staircases going up. And that was what was known as a ziggurat. They would build staircases. They would build it all the way up to the top. Now, this was not built for them to go up. It was built for the gods to come down and walk down the steps and walk down and be with them. And I think this very well could have been what it was. Like I say, they have found some of those over in that area and all. So I think that very much could be. Well, what's funny is that they were building up to the heavens, and God takes them up on it. In verse 5 it says, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building." So the Lord came down. Now, that's kind of funny. They're trying to build up. They're trying to make themselves great, but God's got to come down to see it. And so again, that's what we're seeing in this account, is that they're wanting to make themselves great. They're wanting to build this city and want everybody to move to the same place, and then they're wanting to build this tower that goes high, and God comes down and he sees it. But God's not going to be pleased with what he sees, and he's going to disrupt it. And he's not pleased with what he sees. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, about why he's not pleased. One of the things is I think the earth would have never been, if everybody would have lived in one place, I don't think that we would have multiplied like what we do. And like I mentioned the other day, we see what this pandemic has done to where there are huge concentrations of people. When people live a lot together, the diseases can happen much more quickly, many more people die, and on. I don't think this passage is against cities so much, because the earth at that time was not filled. We've pretty much filled this earth. There's not many empty spots left. But that's what God wanted. He wanted all the areas of the earth to be filled. And he's going to get that, but he's going to have to do something for that. And tomorrow we'll talk about what God does to kind of break up this, all these guys trying to think that they're great and thinking they've really done something, which, by the way, they weren't. To me, the Bible's kind of funny. They've got this language, but it's very simplistic language. They're building this great city, but they're building it with bricks, not stone. They're building it with tar, not mortar. Just everything about it just seems very like they're just fooling themselves, And again, I think that's something we need to look at today, is that, do we want to make our name great, or do we want to serve a great God? And I think the answer is obvious. We want to serve a great God. So I hope today you serve a great God, and tomorrow we will talk more about the Tower of Babel, and then I'll wrap it up on Friday. So I've enjoyed this passage this week. I've had a lot of fun bringing it to you and remembering it and thinking about it and studying on it a little harder and all. So have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.